Welcome to the Candle Business Coach podcast. I'm your host, Kirsty Allen, and I am the Candle Business Coach. I'm also a mum of three and a kindness advocator. This podcast is all about making and selling candles, business development, and mindset, delivered to you with advice, inspiration, and motivation in a new episode every Friday. This episode is proudly sponsored by Aussie Insurance. When you start your candle making business, it's important to set the right foundations in place. Aussie Insurance have created a specialised policy for candle makers, which includes public and product liability insurance. They are the only insurance company I recommend for candle makers because they pride themselves on delivering insurance differently. Aussie are an online company and their passion is all about educating and supporting small businesses with the tools you need to grow and succeed along your journey. Visit aussie.com, spelled AUZI.com, to learn how the team can help you with all your insurance needs for your candle business. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. Today we have the very beautiful Jenifer Merifield with us to talk to us about a couple of different things. I won't sort of divulge too much. I'll let the conversation unfold as it will organically. But Jenifer, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. I think we're 14-hour time difference apart. I guess you could tell by the different accents we have. Right? So I am a personal excellence coach and integration mentor. And I've been at this for about 18 years or so. It's been a while. This is what I meant to do in the world. And I'm super blessed to have a very rewarding work that I do. And so I help people create extraordinary lives now so that it's not about working towards creating extraordinary, hopefully one day, but let's make it happen right now.
I love how you've got such a passion about helping others overcome their challenges and live extraordinary lives in the moment, day to day, rather than, as you say, something that's somewhat in the future and it's kind of hazy and you're not sure if you'll actually get there. With your methodology and the way that you want to help people, it's about making differences that they can implement straight away.
That's right. Yeah.
So good. So let's delve right into some juicy questions.
Okay,
the first one being talking about self-doubt and how it's a common challenge for so many people. What are some signs that someone is struggling with self-doubt as an outsider that we can possibly look and see and maybe help?
You know what? And honestly, Kirsty, I'm going to say that everybody has some degree of self-doubt at some point, and usually it's a thing, like there's some doubt and it's healthy. I think self-doubt can be a healthy thing to help us, have a perspective and strive for more. Self-doubt as a challenge, is when it debilitates us from moving forward. When it gets to a place where we hold back, we feel like we don't have a voice for ourselves, or we shrink and play small and we go, oh my gosh, where did the last year go by? I wanted to be here in my life and oh my gosh, I'm not. And self-doubt perpetuates more self-doubt, unfortunately, and can really get us in a sort of hamster wheel of stuckness.
Yeah. And it's so, as you say, debilitating because time is traveling faster and faster, it feels, every year. As we get older, it seems to just increase. And yet we have these big goals for our lives and for our business and things that we want to achieve. And when we look back, it's now October. By the time this episode comes out, it'll be December. So people will be, thinking about their New Year resolutions and, what they have or have not achieved over the past 12 months. And when we're filled with self-doubt, or if we have a higher level of self-doubt than is, I guess, necessary or helpful, it can stop us in our tracks from achieving those goals and keep us stuck, which is, just a sad reality of having, I guess, mental health, not issues or concerns, but rather just struggles and challenges along our journey.
Yeah. I think a really great tool for that is to realize that self-doubt is perception. It's so self-doubt is always fear-based. And if you think of fear as the acronym, false evidence appearing real. So it's kind of like it's us in our minds perceiving something with a filter that doesn't serve us. So if we think of self-doubt as, why am I doubting myself? Doubt is one possible way to look at ourselves. There are infinite ways to look at ourselves that feel better. There are ways to look at ourselves that feel worse. But if we know that self-doubt is a choice, then we can ask ourselves, how can I feel a little bit better right now? How can I look at this from a better perspective? Because the difference between perception and perspective is perception is from within and perspective is from without. So if my perception of myself is like, I'm doubting, I'm not feeling good enough, I'm not feeling like I can do something or accomplish something, or I'm measuring myself against someone else or something else, I'm going to feel bad. But if I zoom out and sort of, step outside of myself, my cloud, my bubble in that moment, and say, okay, what's another way to look at this? How else can I feel? You know what? There are, like I said, infinite ways to look at this. And I don't have to only just choose this one. I can think, because when we are doubting ourselves, it's coming from some belief that we bought into. Past programming. It could be someone else's belief, something we picked up along the way and just bought into it without questioning it. And it's just been our truth that we've been living all this time. And when we really think about, like, is that even my truth? Is this doubt necessary? And is it the only truth? Are there other options? Because here's the thing, we get to think whatever we want. We get to focus on whatever we want. Those are the two things that someone can't take from us. We get to imagine whatever we want. So why not think and focus on something amazing? Mm-hmm. If we have the choice, why not? Yes. It changes everything.
And do you think that it comes down to having enough maturity and self-awareness to know that we've got those choices?
Self-awareness is key. Absolutely. And here's the thing. I don't necessarily think it's maturity, because as soon as anyone learns that they have a choice, then they can shift their mind. It's just a matter of, having the courage to say, okay, I'm going to change my mind, because we get so stuck in self-doubt is a safe place to be. It's actually kind of a crutch for us, because if I am taking a chance with something, starting a new business, or, striving to do something that I'm not used to doing, that's outside of my comfort zone. That is unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar is scary, because what might happen between comfort zone and unfamiliar? I might fail. I might get ridiculed. I might get laughed at. Amazing. All the amazing things I ever wanted are out there, but it's way more comfortable to just be here. So self-doubt will kick in actually as a self-protection mechanism, which is really fascinating when you think about it. Like, wow, our body and our minds love us so much. It's going to scare us to hold back so that we don't get hurt. But when we bring our conscious mind into the blend and say, like, you know what, this is worth taking the risk. It's worth having a little bit of discomfort, maybe a little bit of pain, to get to that place of where we actually want to be.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you phrase that. And I think it's so interesting that when we start to take those baby steps into making changes and striving for more, and then we realize, oh, okay, that wasn't as scary as I first perceived, I might take the next step, and then the next and the next. And that's when we can look back and go, wow, look how far I've come. And you start to build up momentum, and you have this motivation, this inner motivation, where you then start to create great change in your life, depending on what your goals are and what you want to achieve on your journey.
Yeah. There's a really great tool that I like to use with my clients. And I say, okay, the worst, the best, and the most likely. So what is the worst thing that would happen if you take this chance, if you do this thing, if you put yourself out there? And usually our minds like create this massive, oh my God, I'm going to die and I'm going to, whatever. And then, okay, so that's the worst thing. What's the best thing that could happen? I'll actually get what I want. and it'll be amazing. And it'll be even better than I can imagine. Okay. So now we know the worst and the best. Either of those are the least likely, but what is likely in between that? Right. And that's when we come up with, oh, you know what? Probably it's going to be this, because we know what's probably going to happen. And if we were to suggest someone else in our situation, go do it, this is probably what's going to happen, we know exactly what to say. But when it's ourself, it's just this extra layer of scariness, right? So when you really put it out there, like the far extreme ends, and then the all the in between, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm willing to take a chance for that to happen.
And the potential of what can happen is so exciting, or if your perspective is seeing it in a more positive way, it can excite you and enhance your desire to then take those first initial steps.
That's right. And depending what we're talking about, it might be just phase one of what you're going to do. And then the next time you do it, you got a little more courage, a little more experience, and then it just gets better and better. Here's like anything with life. When you think about the things that you've gotten through in your life that were just dreadful, you wouldn't wish it on anyone. What did you get from that? Usually it's like the best wisdom, the best experience that made you stronger from it, right? You don't want to do it again. You don't wish it on anybody, but it's like, yeah, I'm going to take that wisdom that I got from that and that strength that I actually got through that, because that's how we grow, right?
Yes. I couldn't have said that better myself, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
How does self-doubt manifest differently in terms of like our career or our relationships or more personal goals?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. I guess it depends. One of the biggest problems with self-doubt is when it shows up in one area of life, it can start creeping into the other ones. Even if we're confident somewhere else, it starts to blend in. And that's why it's so important to compartmentalize challenges. I like to say challenges instead of problems, but if you want to say problems, we could say that too. So say there's a big challenge that shows up in your life and it's really difficult and it's kind of bringing you down and it's kind of making you, have some self-doubt, and that discomfort is palpable. Like it's really, the more we stay in that without pushing through it, the more we start to believe the things that our mind tells us about not being good enough. And then if we don't have super solid foundations in the other areas of our life, we can start questioning, I wonder if that equals the same here and here. And so that's why it's so important to really remember perception and perspective is get a new perspective, zoom out and go, okay, it's one thing. This doesn't have to equal the rest of my life. Just like our past doesn't have to be a predictor of the future. I don't have to carry something with me. Mistakes are not life sentences we need to punish ourselves for. We get to learn the lesson and go, okay, I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to use this as a launching pad and continue forward without it. Otherwise, I'm just dragging it with me. And every time I think of it, I bring it back into reality. So as far as, business versus relationships, if there's an area of your life where you're super solid, do a reverse psychology. Tell yourself, okay, I know how this feels to feel confident and feel great about myself in this area. How can I bring this into these other areas? And just start creating new truths, because our mind doesn't know the difference between thoughts and reality. So whatever we focus on, our subconscious is going to go, truth, truth, truth. Let's find evidence of that. So if I'm focusing on worry, doubt, fear, it's going to start looking for more things to be worried about so it can protect me, right? If I cancel, stop, one of the declarations I love is, every time I worry, something amazing happens, which, some people go that's ridiculous. No, it's great, because it's a pattern interrupt. It stops us from going wait, what? Worry, amazing? Because your subconscious instantly will go, what's amazing? Looking for evidence, because that whatever I say equals truth. And it just kind of snaps you out of the okay, don't go in that bubble.
So important to interrupt those thoughts when you start to spiral or you start to go down a path of that doubt or imposter syndrome, or just not feeling as confident as you could be in whatever area of life the challenge is
So true.
presenting. Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Speaking
So
of
true.
imposter syndrome, can you enlighten us as to how we can recognize it and possibly combat it?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I have experience with that. I
Don't we
remember.
all?
Yes, right. It's that, starting something new, or just, it's usually it's when again, so we talked about comfort zone versus unfamiliar. So when there's something unfamiliar, if we don't already have that foundation of self-worth, self-love, a little bit of confidence, doesn't have to be like super confident, but even just enough to like, I where I go, I belong. It can show up, and it's that feeling of they're going to recognize that I'm not good enough. I'm not who I am. I don't belong here. Everybody's better than me, different in a good way, better than me, or whatever it is. So it's like that. So a lot of imposter syndrome is related to childhood, feeling rejected in some way, or feeling like, the last one chosen for the team, or not being invited to the birthday party or something like that. It can start from that, where we, again, if we tie it back into self-doubt, is we start doubting our worth in comparison and measuring against other people or other achievements, so that when we are in a place where we recognize other people who have achieved or who have some type of status or title, we instantly go into measuring us against them and feel like, uh-oh, what if I'm discovered that I'm not good enough? I don't belong here. I'm an imposter.
Yeah. And as we said, like with self-doubt, it can be so debilitating. But I have to wonder, like, how many times, like when we think about, perception versus reality, how many times do we go into a situation where people actually turn around and say, you're not good enough, you don't belong here, you're not welcome here, or you're not entitled to be here? I wonder how many times that actually happens, or whether it's just in our mind thinking that might
I've never
happen.
seen it actually happen. Yeah.
Exactly, that's right.
And you know what I'll tell you, from doing this for as many years as I have, and for as many thousands of hours as I've coached, everybody, and I'm talking like CEOs of multi-millionaire, $1 million companies, like everybody has a little bit of that, or has had moments of, uh-oh, like that self-measuring. Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
reassuring that it's something that we all commonly share, and it's not just us experiencing this challenge, but it is across just human nature?
Yeah, it's a survivor mentality. So there's victim, survivor, and thriver. It's one of the modules in my process that I teach. And when we're in a survivor mentality, so victim is I'm not good enough, but really it's more like shame, guilt, regret, like very dark, very stuck, very like no energy movement. Whereas survivor is like, okay, so there's some energy movement, like I'm done being sad, I'm done being depressed, and there's a little bit of fire that happens, kind of like some anger comes out, like frustrated, I'm just done with this. The problem is when we get to that anger piece, we remember as children, we're told, don't be angry, that's not nice. So generally what happens is we loop back down to the bottom of the pit, back into the victim. But for what I always say is like, anger is good. Every emotion is good because emotions represent a message that our body is trying to tell us, right? So if we find healthy expressions of anger, then we can move forward. Energy movement is good when we're, doing it in a healthy way. So in the survivor level of mindset is where we are striving to get to the finish line. And when we get close, we realize, you come into a new perspective of the horizon. It's like, oh, there's more. So we never stop because there's always a new finish line, and we see someone else is a little bit ahead of us, or has a new label or a different thing or a better title or whatever. And that now we got to do that because we're always comparing to someone else. So it's a very perfectionism sort of state to be in. Whereas thriving is where it doesn't mean there's no challenges in life. It doesn't mean there's, things don't go wrong. It just means we don't hang on to the problems of life. We recognize it, we deal with it, but we choose to refocus on how can I move forward. And so when we're in that survivor sort of perfectionist mindset of measuring ourselves, either imposter syndrome or like perfectionism or self-doubt or whatever, whenever those thoughts come up, the tool is to ask yourself, according to whom or compared to what am I measuring this? Because if we say according to whom, it's usually according to myself and my own judgment, which is like way worse than anyone else would ever judge us, right? We judge ourselves harder. And compared to what? Compared to what? Like we're comparing ourselves or our achievements to, if I say like, well, my car's not good enough because, they have these cars. Well, there's always someone else who has a car that they would wish they had my car. And then there's someone who would wish they had their car and so on. And car, home, status, people, what, like you name the things that people put importance on, right? It could be anything. And so when we really, again, change our perspective to ask the right questions, like just change perspective, according to whom, compared to what, it kind of puts us back into, you know what, I'm fine. I'm fine. So I can switch into like that thriver perspective of everyone in this room has challenges in their life. Everyone in this room is worried about something. Everyone's going home to, there's some challenge. It might be small, might be huge, but everyone thought about what they're going to put on, right? Some of us stressed about it and tried 20 things, everyone's thinking about what they're going to say or you know what I mean? So honestly, and I'll tell you from doing this for this many years, everyone's the same on a foundational level. It's just, we're all just out there doing our best with what we know, trying to have our best life and fumbling around and walking into walls and finding love whenever we can, really.
That's so true. It's interesting because I've often thought that the age that I am, I don't feel that number. I still feel like I'm a kid trying to figure out the world. And when I've said it to my partner or I've said it to friends, I'm like, does anyone really know what they're doing? Or are we all just kind of fumbling through life to the best of our ability? And it's true. Like, yes, we come with different, education and different experience and different knowledge and different skills, but it's the rich tapestry of all those differences that make this world as beautiful as it is. And when we can work through our mental challenges and, and real challenges as well, life just gets better and better as long as you've got the right perspective and the right perception. And that takes practice.
And that's exactly it. And we get to be gentle with ourselves. We get to make mistakes and go, okay, rather than hang on to it and feel guilt or feel shame about it. It's like, okay, so I made a mistake. What would I say to a beautiful child? Let it go and try again. Right. So, we get to be gentle with ourselves, and, it takes decades sometimes to get to that place to learn it and finally feel like, oh yeah, but yeah, I think our entire life is an opportunity for self-growth and exploration and heart softening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the beauties and joys in life is that we are able to go on this journey, growth journey, and be able to learn more about who we are, what's important to us, what matters to us, and how we can make an impact in the world by helping others have that same sort of enlightenment, or to show them that it's possible to be in that thriving state of mind rather than in a victim or a survivor.
Yeah. Well said. Very well said. Yeah.
Could you talk to us about procrastination and where that comes from? What are the underlying reasons?
Yeah, there's a lot to that for sure. So, procrastination is often, and I see this a lot with doers, like real action people, and they'll have procrastination. So procrastination doesn't equal lazy. Let's just clear that up right now. There's nothing wrong with you if you procrastinate. It's generally a sense of overwhelm and then like action paralysis. And I know for me, when I started my first business, I was in marketing communications and I was a single mom, and I was like, gotta go, gotta do everything, gotta get to the school and be the parent helper. And I gotta do this and then run my business. And then have to have quiet time with the kids and read stories and then go back to work at night. And, and I was just like, I was working so hard and I really was proud of the hustle, but the hustle wasn't like, busy doesn't equal productive all the time, right? But I would have times where I would procrastinate and put things off and I would convince myself it was because I was so busy. But it was just it was more of a just not really understanding, systems and how to do things. But it got to a point for me where I had extreme adrenal failure, and so I burnt out hard. And my doctor's like, you can't do this anymore. Like you're not going to be here to enjoy life with your kids. Like, why are you doing this? If you're doing it for them, stop, because it's not, you're not going to get the result you want. So it's like, okay, message loud and clear. I get to rethink, how do I want to do this? And what I learned was I can actually get more done at a calmer pace with more structure. And the procrastination kind of went away when I learned some tools around that. It's a huge part of why I do what I do, is because I've been through all the crazy, like this. And I think that really helps. I had a therapist many years ago who said, yeah, I think one day I can see you being a therapist coach. Very similar. She's like, all the people with the most traumatic upbringings have make the best therapists because they get it. So I find that it's a way to make it a gift. And so with the procrastination, it's like that. It's like there's so much, or we believe there's so much, or we've created so much for ourselves that we feel like we have to or should do, that it gets to be like, where do I start? And then some emergency shows up. You got to do this right now. Something external comes in and it's like, I can't. And it's just our body it loves us so much. It will find ways to shut us down. If we're not going to deal with something, it will give us a message. And if we ignore the message, like me with the adrenal, like, it's like, I'm tired, I'll have just a little tiny nap and then I can get more done because I'm young and I can do that. So it's just nuts, right? Because eventually the body's going to let us know loud and clear, no, you're done, stop it. And so the procrastination is a great way to let that be a message to yourself of, where do I get to change things up a little bit so it actually works for me, where I don't want to procrastinate? Because there might be a project, like, so with candle makers, right? Like, you might love making candles, but then you find yourself procrastinating from doing the very thing you love so much. It's like, well, why am I procrastinating? I love making candles. But if there's so much else that there's no room anymore, either in your mind, in your heart, physically, maybe your place is a disaster because you're so busy. It's just the procrastination is your body and your mind or your soul saying, let's just refocus. Let's just make some space. And sometimes a great thing to do, if you're finding the procrastination is coming into affecting the things that you actually love to do, go and tidy something. This sounds kind of crazy, but like, if you like make your bed, or like tidy, something, it creates like they say, our space and our mind are very connected. Like, just like energetically, if we have space around, like, when you go to bed at night and the bed's made and your room is tidy, it's just like, it's nice, right? Or when you get up in the morning and you go to make a coffee or a tea, and the kitchen, like all the dishes are done and away and everything's tidy and sparkling. It's just, there's a feeling, like there's an energetic feeling that goes with it. But if there's chaos, and it could be chaos like in your space or in your mind, or just like in your heart, like there's just so much, then it'll stop us eventually. So what can I do to create space? And then the more space we create, and pick the easiest thing. Because in procrastination, we think, I got to do all these things. I got to do the hardest things. I got to do the yucky things. Just do anything. Pick the easiest one first, the shortest one first, and then you feel accomplishment. And that's like great. I mean, back in the day when we used to write down our to-do list, and everyone's digital now, and like to check it off would be like, scratch it off, because it would feel so good to like, done. Oh, I got another thing done. I used to like add a few things on the list that I had already done just so I could scratch them off, you know? But really, procrastination is, think of it as a message of, where do you get a little more self-care right now? Where can you like pause? And procrastination feels like, I don't have time to pause. I'm so busy. Yeah, you need to pause. It's time to pause and reevaluate. Because like I said, with that adrenal fatigue and that crash that I had no choice but to pause. And I was like, I can't stop. Like, I have so much to do. It's like, choose. You choose. It's like, okay, I get it. And the crazy thing is, like I said, there's so much that I got to just wipe off and go, okay, starting new. And then it was, oh, there's actually peace underneath all of this craziness. And I don't have to be this busy to get what I want and be productive. And it's what leads into why I do what I do now. I want people to love their life right now. I want people to know that it's possible, and it's yours to take, to love your life. Even when there's crazy stuff going on right here, right now, you can still love it. And there's tools that you can, like, in your mind, in your heart, no matter what tornado's going on around you, you can still have that centeredness of peace and that feeling of like, yep, everything's fine.
And having that peace is such a beautiful feeling, and it ripples out and radiates around you, not only to your space, but to your family that live with you, your extended family and friends, and the general community. Because when you're feeling in the right mindset, the body feels calm, the surroundings feel centered, your perspective is so different, your perception is so different.
Yes.
And you can overcome challenges, I want to say it, more easily, because you've got the right tools in place and the right strategies that you're utilizing on a regular basis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, you should be a coach. You're really good. Yeah,
maybe I could
right.
be the candle business coach.
Yes. There's a great niche. Yep. Absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by the membership for candle makers, the Candle Makers Collective. Becoming a member gives you access to fortnightly online group Q&A coaching sessions to support you, monthly online workshops and trainings to help you grow your business, plus frequent expert guest speakers to inspire and teach you. You'll also have access to an ever-growing resource library with templates, guides, planners, and ebooks. But my favorite aspect of the membership is our exclusive Facebook group for accountability, connection, and support. So if you're looking to take your candle business to the next level and learn more about the membership for candle makers, click the link in the show notes for the Candle Makers Collective.
Are there any practical strategies or techniques that you can share with us about how to boost our motivation?
Yes. Oh, there's so many. I would say, to boost motivation, think of like mind, body, soul kind of thing. I mean, we've heard all this. It's nothing I'm saying is anything you don't already know. It's just different words and different perspectives. And sometimes something will hit. It's like, I've heard that 1,000 times, but the way you say it just really hit home. So like I said, I'm not going to say anything that you don't already know, but if you think of it, everything's connected. So when you want to be motivated, we think like energy movement, like raw, like move, like yes. It's like motivation is energy movement with the yes, I want to, go for it. So a lot of energy movement in business or in work or where responsibilities are concerned, it's energy movement, but I don't want to, or I don't really love it. Or sometimes we really love something, but we don't have time for it. And, or we have that, where you're doing something you don't want to do. So and then you just like, oh, I really love this. And then we get behind on this. And it's like, what do we call it? What do you call it over there? We call it shiny thing syndrome, or
shiny objects. Yeah.
Shiny objects. Okay. Yeah. And so that, because we get motivated, because that's exciting and it's fun, right? It takes away from the space that we get to create later by doing the thing we don't want to do right now. And we're just creatures of instant gratification. And so if we can learn some delayed gratification, so one of the tools, I'm going to go a little bit different than the usual answer, just because everyone knows, yes, eat well, sleep properly, say affirmations and love yourself. We all know that. So what I'm going to say instead is take 30 minutes, shut off all your like alerts, because you probably need a device to do whatever you need to do for 30 minutes, but shut off all your alerts, 30 minutes, and go do the worst thing on your list that you don't want to do. Go and just spend 30 minutes. And when the timer goes off, step away, walk away, like let it go. And you will feel so motivated after that, because you've just taken something. We call it the frog. So Mark Twain once said that if you had to eat a frog every day, the best thing to do is eat it first, because here's what happens. And it's a live frog. So imagine there's a live ribbit sitting right there, and you have to eat it live. Like you have to, you have to. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's the most disgusting thing. Most of us, unless there's some crazy people, but most of us will avoid that all day long, because it's like, we can't, like, I cannot bring myself to this. But here's what happens in the avoiding of doing it. We also we're not very focused on the other things we do. We tinker here and we tinker there. We, kind of do half-assed job on certain things, whatever. And because we're thinking of the thing we really have to do. And then eventually, fine. Oh, and then we eat this thing and it's over and done with. Oh, and there's massive relief. So he says, if you eat it first, if the first thing you do is do the thing that you least want to do, then all of a sudden you're going to be so much more productive and motivated for the rest of the day, because now everything else seems easier, right? Everything else just seems so if you think of your to-do list for the day as frogs, like what is like the nastiest frog? If it was a frog and you had to eat it, what is it? And just do it first. And so the 30-minute task train that we do is, so pick the thing, get yourself ready for it. Just like, don't put it off, like just immediately go, turn on the 30 minutes and just start and just do as much as you can in 30 minutes. If your email ping, if you hear all those little ding, like all those little dings that we know it's a text, it's a message, it's a whatever, like ignore. 30 minutes out of 24 hours, that's it. And just focus on that one thing. And if you do that like every day for 1 week, you're going to feel so good at the end of the week. And that's motivation. Like you're going to feel motivated for for everything else that you do in your day. And you're going to feel so good, because like doing the easy things or doing the things that distract us, the shiny objects, they're fun, but we regret later that we did it, when it starts to build up all the other things, and then it goes back to overwhelm, and then it goes to procrastination and all that. It's building like this while we're on shiny thing syndrome, right? But when we eat those frogs, it just nothing else catches up to us, because we're making space along the way. It's amazing. When the frogs build up and we don't do those things that we don't want to do the most, then it's overwhelm, and then procrastination hits instantly and easily. And we're like, it's so easy to be a victim to it at that point. For an answer.
No, it's true, because then we'll pull out our phone and go on social media for several hours, or we'll jump on Netflix and scroll shows, rather than actually doing the tasks that we know will move us forward in our journey. We sit in that space of overwhelm and procrastination, and then the self-doubt starts to creep in, and the imposter syndrome, and all the different challenges that we can experience, they become magnified, rather than working on the challenges and working through our tasks and getting on with life.
That's right. And then the other part was, And if you had to eat two frogs, eat the ugliest one first.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about the differences between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset?
So a fixed mindset is about is kind of like imagine like having a block, like kind of like this is my truth, my belief, and that's it. There's no need to question it or talk about it. So it's kind of like being stuck, like you just stop right there. Whereas a growth mindset is the doors are open, there's no walls. It's like, okay, this is the truth for now, but I'm open to hearing something else. So there's, again, if you think of energy movement, like energy movement is just something that it's a concept that I share that if you just think about that throughout the day, like what's my energy movement right now? And how can I have more productive or comfortable or flowing energy movement? So with a growth mindset, there's room to move, to grow, to expand, and it can come up anywhere. So if you are in, let's go back to procrastination, if you're feeling stuck and you're procrastinating, what is the thought that is leaving you there? Like, what's the belief that you think I have to, I should, I need to, something? Because those are like, I should or I have to is very stuck. It's like one option belief, right? Whereas if you open that up to what are some other possibilities? What other options do I have? And now you can expand. Now you can grow and go, oh, you know what? What if I do this? Or what if I ask someone for another idea? Or what would a lazy person do? Like, lazy people know the best ways to get stuff done. But, and I'm joking with that, but you know what I mean? Like, what would someone else say, or what else can happen? And then all of a sudden things are moving.
I feel like, having like personally done a lot of therapy, it equipped me with the tools and the interruptions to my thoughts to go, there is another way. There's another way of looking at this. There's another perspective. There's other ways of approaching different situations. And so I wonder, it's probably a funny question. Would you recommend therapy or someone having a coach to help guide them through life's journey?
Absolutely. Both.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. I've had therapists and I've had coaches throughout my life. I mean, I still have coaches. I will have coaches for the rest of my life because I just believe in it so much. Now it just depends sort of where you're at or what you're looking for. There are differences between coaches, mentors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on. Counselors, I guess there's a lot of different fields. 100% get support in your life. And even if it's just, a group of people, like if, depending on, what, your money situation is like and what it costs, that will have an effect on who you have, but get the best support that you can afford. It will change your life faster than anything else, and in more ways. And if you want to make more money, if you want to be more prosperous or abundant in any way, when you have people supporting you and guiding you, I mean, try to figure something out on your own. It's going to take you decades longer than when you have support. At the very least, read books, like read really great books. Empowering, motivating, inspiring books. Listen to podcasts. Kirsty has a really great podcast. But really just listen to things that lift you up and that you feel moving. You feel like the energy shifts in you, because that'll spark, that will declutter your brain and your heart. If it's heavy, like that'll be like, you know what? I am fine. Or you know what? There are other possibilities. So if you're asking me, would I choose a therapist versus a coach? It depends on the person. I mean, definitely I have an affinity for coaches because that's what I do. And that's, I train coaches as well. I'll tell you about coaches, therapists. I mean, do your own research. There are wonderful therapists and wonderful coaches, and not all coaches and therapists are alike. Like, so there's definitely levels of coaches and therapists in both industries. And I believe in both of them. And I would say, interview them, ask them the tough questions, get get a coach or a therapist who has experience and actually has testimonials. Like you can hear from people who have been with them and say, yes, I've had benefit. There are coaches and therapists who, maybe are not great. I don't mean to insult anybody. There's someone for everybody, but there are ones who have more training, more experience, and are a better fit for you. Coaching is all about forward focus. So coaching is, okay, so this trauma, this challenge, this problem in your life, okay, let's acknowledge it. Let's, we might dig a little bit, but we're not hanging around in the problem. We're not going to reactivate any traumas or anything like that. We're going to notice it. And then we're going to say, where do you want to go from here? What are you going to take from here that's going to benefit you to move forward? And how are you going to make peace with whatever's there? And there's, I don't mean that as a blanket statement to disrespect anyone's traumas or whatever. There are many beautiful ways to acknowledge and respect and honor but move forward from it so that your past doesn't equal your future. So coaching is very much, what do you want? Let's go. Let's do it. Like it's going to happen. Are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to look at stuff that's uncomfortable? And are you willing to take accountability for the stuff in your life? And I'm there with you. Your coach is there with you to support you and love you along the way, but you get to do the work and you get to take the credit. And the same with therapy. It's very much, it's all about, having a great life.
Or an extraordinary life.
Yes, even better.
Speaking of, how do you define an extraordinary life? Or is it something that's just so personal to each person that it's hard to define or put in a box?
So what I like to say, extraordinary, if we break that down into extraordinary. So if we start off by striving for anything better than ordinary, is extraordinary. So ordinary is like, meh, it's all right. It's fine. Kind of gray, kind of neutral. Extraordinary is, that's nice. Oh, I like that. That makes me smile. That feels good. Ooh, I prefer that. And then any degree after that where it just feels great. So even if you imagine an extraordinary life is just smiling every day, more often than not, right? And then having moments of excitement or elation, having moments of thrill and joy and bliss, but also knowing that when the challenges show up, that they will show up because they do, but they're not going to last because you have the tools, how to what? I prefer extraordinary. I prefer to have a thriver lifestyle. How fast can I clear this and move on? We're not lingering around that. It's just, and it's very much from a place of love and a place of just so much love and appreciation for other people that it's like walking around in gratitude where, if there's, stress and whatever, extraordinary is like, if there's someone annoying or you're out and about in the shops or whatever, that you would ask yourself, what can I love about that person? What can I appreciate about that person? Even if it means I have to imagine them as an innocent little child being really cute and saying, I just need to be loved, then great. But it's really coming from a place of knowing that so it's like with people, all people are good. Not all people's behaviors are good. So we don't want to confuse the behavior with who the person is. A behavior is a representation of how you're feeling in the moment. It's not who you are. We all have poor behaviors at times, but we don't want to be judged for who we are for having a bad day or a bad hour, right? So when we come from a place of recognizing, hey, what's going on for you right now? Because this behavior is not cool. Then that's me showing up with love. Like, I still accept you, but what's going on with this? Right? Versus get out of my life just for having a bad day. Right?
Yeah, no, I think that's really beautiful. And I think it is something that will be different for each person depending on what they want for their life, what what day of the week it is, what's going on month to
Absolutely.
month. It can change. It's not set in stone. But knowing that you
No.
can strive for that and you can have it on a daily basis and grow along the journey is so humbling and exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And so, something that would feel like wonderful for me would be, would be different for you. So it's, it's a very individual thing, but it's also that's kind of the beauty of it is you get to choose. There's no like this equals extraordinary. This is what it has to be. It's like, what do you want it to be? You pick whatever you want. And that's like, yay. All right.
Yeah. You're
It
only
gets to
limited
be
by your imagination.
right. Yeah.
Because I
That's
mean,
right.
there's so many different areas of life that we can focus on, that we can enjoy, that we can work on, that we can experience. It's just a matter of working out what we actually want, because half the challenge is knowing what we want. And then once you know what it is that you're striving for, then you can put strategies in place or processes in place to get to where you want to go. But you need to know where you're aiming.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, very well said.
I'm
Hmm.
wondering what gives you motivation to keep going when things get tough in your journey?
Oh, I love that question. I think really being clear on really the what's bigger than me. That I find when things get tough, it's because I'm sort of going into like a little bubble, like I'm narrowing my periphery of all the beauty that is in the world. And I mean, there's a lot of craziness going on right now. And when this airs, who knows what's going to be going on then as well. But right now, there's some crazy stuff going on in the world that is very hard to accept and hard to hear and just heartbreaking. And so there's a feeling of, well, how can I be happy and joyful when so many people are suffering? And I think that's exactly the answer to your question, is because they would want me to be, because they would trade with me in a second. And so if I have the ability and the capability to love life and appreciate the gifts that I have, I'm going to do that rather than shrink and play small and not take advantage of it when so many people, would love to have to be able to take something like that for granted when they're in a different position. So I think really, when it's the challenges, it's a matter of thinking, what's the bigger picture? Like there's so much more than, yes, I get to feel bad for something in the moment, or I get to be grumpy or have a little pity party, but I also know that, I get to get over it faster because um I mean, what I do for a living is I consider myself a teacher, not a preacher. So I like to be the example of what I'm teaching so that people can see that I'm in integrity. So if I say you should do this, but then I don't do it, then that's more preachy than teachy. So I want to be that example. So that snaps me out of it for sure. And then absolutely, like having a bigger why. So my kids, for instance, like I'll do it for them. I'll eat the frogs. I'll do the hard things for them, to be the example for them if I can't do it for myself in the moment, or if it feels really hard.
That's why it's so important to know what our big why is and to have that
Mm.
support around us to keep us accountable, to help
That's right.
encourage us and cheerlead us along the way. So that when we
That's
have
right.
those moments where we fumble or we stumble and we're not sure what direction to take or what action to take, we can then again zoom out, get some perspective and go, yeah, you know what? This is what past me said that I wanted. Current me might not be able to give, 100%, but if I can give my best, even if it's 60%, if I can just do my best each day, even though that will vary, you're going to make progress. You're going to get closer to your goals, your ultimate dreams, no matter what they are.
Yep. I'm telling you, you should be a coach. You're good.
Thank you. Jenifer,
Yeah.
we've come to one of my favorite parts of the podcast where I ask all my guests three questions relating to candles. So,
Ooh.
question number one, what is your favorite candle fragrance?
I love candles and I love walking into a room and that smell. Can I pick more than one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. So in like the warm, so what's your temperature right now? I'm so curious.
It's about 24 degrees Celsius.
Okay. So we're about 5 degrees Celsius right now.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. During the day, we're around 15 right now, 15, 18 but it's slowly dropping quickly. You know what I mean? Anyway, so
Yeah.
this time of year, I'm sort of getting that feeling of like pine, like that pine scent. It starts to get like fall and all the leaves are like red and orange and yellow. It's so beautiful out, and that like scent of pine. So if like a candle with like pine and like a musky sort of like a yummy man smell, like I love that in the colder seasons. And in
Yes.
the warmer seasons, I love the like the flowery, like peony vanilla type of like pink. That smell
Yes.
just smells like pink and fresh. Like I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost like you've
Yeah.
got a masculine and a feminine
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
tilt depending on the season. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Really good point. Yeah. Very perceptive. Yeah.
Question 2, what do you love about candles?
Just the coziness. Like I love the coziness of like the just the warmth of the flicker and the smell. It feels like comfort. It feels like safety and everything's fine.
Mm.
Yeah.
It feels like coming home, even though you're at home when you light the candle. Yeah.
That's right.
Mm.
Yeah. I love that.
And then the last question is, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give to candle makers during their journey?
Oh gosh. You know what? I have so many that I would love to share, but I'm going to pick one that goes with the theme for today. I'm going to say, when doubt shows up, look it straight in the eye, walk straight into it. Don't go the opposite way. The other side of doubt is always freedom. Doubt shows up as a message for us. Like when this little thing is dealt with, more of extraordinary is there for you. We generally go the opposite way from doubt, but oh, if I could just really like take some of my courage for you if you need some, but just like when the doubt shows up, go straight for it and just bust right through it, because you're going to gain so much from it.
Mm-hmm. You'll learn so much more about yourself and how you process different experiences that you go through in life. And if you're able to, as you say, have that courage and be brave, there's an extraordinary life waiting for you on the other side.
And you kind of realize that, oh, my life was already extraordinary. That's
Yes.
kind of the beauty of it, is you're not actually going somewhere new. It's just kind of like removing some kind of veil or something, like, oh, wow, like it's already here. And I like, honestly, from what I've witnessed, everything is possible. And I say that with zero doubt. Everything is possible for you.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you so, so much from the bottom of my heart for being on this podcast episode with me today and sharing your wisdom and knowledge and words of encouragement. It's been an absolutely incredible conversation, and I'm so grateful to you, and I can't wait to hear what the listeners think of us chatting today.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. Wow, you're a wonderful host. Great questions and great conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, my friend, for listening to this episode. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout the conversation, and please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you're feeling inspired, I would love it if you would write a review for the podcast and give a 5-star rating. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful day.